Hello. As you can tell from the backdrop, I'm not with you in Nottingham today. I'm in New York, the city that's cut crime by more than any other city in the world. We've been talking to the policemen here, finding out how they make their police more accountable to the ordinary people of the city, how they cut crime by zero tolerance and visible policing, and also what they've done to cut back on the risk of terrorism in a city that's had the worst terrorist incident in the last century. I never have thought that something that's missing could quite shock like this, but that's what it does. You come here and it's just as though something's been torn out and been taken away.
Just a swipe. You'll take a handle, swipe under the handle. Yeah. That's it. That's all you need. Yeah. You don't have to go too much further. Sure. They might do a little bit here on the handles, the latches or something. Put it in the thing, boom, go on. So it actually made it a lot easier for it, quicker. They do more people. Like what they'll do in an hour, they'll do a couple hundred people.
Yeah. It's barely 2 years since in King's Cross in London, 4 terrorists killed 52 British citizens. 3 years ago, New York started taking this threat really seriously. They put in place a whole detection system from everything from poisonous gases to radiation to biological agents which might be released into the subway. And as soon as their system picks it up, which it does within seconds and detects it, it then switches the cameras on or picks up the images from the cameras that cover that part of the station, that part of the subway, and the controllers can see who it is, who's there, what is he doing. Well, at the moment we have very little, if anything, that's remotely comparable to this. And bear in mind that the attack on us was on the 7th of July, was on King's Cross, on our underground system. We should be looking to have something very like this right now, as soon as possible.
Of course, one of our secretaries says she's been stopped 3 times in the last 2 weeks, so she gets the lucky number all the time.
She was good looking.
Yeah, she was.
Is it pretty safe?
Actually, it is. It's actually very safe.
When Tony Blair did my job, he coined that tremendous phrase of, tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. A fantastic phrase. Unfortunately, it was the last thoughtful thing they did on crime or immigration or terrorism. Now, opposition's a time, it's a very frustrating time in many ways, but it is a time when you can get your thoughts straight, when you can find out what it is that works. Now, in our country today, we spend a huge amount of money on policing and on law and order, and yet we have one of the highest crime rates in Europe. We have very high violent crime levels. We're burglary capital of Europe, and so on. So we have to sort those things out. Now, 20 years ago, New York, this city, was seen as one of the crime capitals of the world. High murder rates, high violent crime rates. Every single crime was in the sort of first division, the wrong division to be in. What happened was they elected somebody who, Mayor Giuliani, who took a grip of this, and in the subsequent few years, he cut crime by 3/4. Now, a variety of things are important there. Firstly, he was accountable to the people, and the police were accountable to the people, through him directly, the people they serve. The police, you'll see, are part of the community here. You see them everywhere. You see them in diners, you see them on the street corners, they're everywhere. That's the second thing. Large numbers of police actually on the streets, not sitting in a station, not filling in forms, not dealing with bureaucracy, actually on the streets, a presence, visible. And they can intervene whenever they see it necessary to do so. I'm in Times Square, the equivalent of Piccadilly. You've got 4 policemen behind me, there are 3 down there, another one over there in a police car, 2 over there, a police car up there, and behind that building there, a police office. Can you imagine that, Piccadilly in the middle of London? The third thing is that they didn't put up with anything. They didn't cut murder by focusing on murder. They cut murder by focusing on crime.
When I joined, there was probably a murder every other day. When you arrest the quality of life crimes, the small little crimes, it always leads to the bigger stuff. It's like typically when you see serial killers that get arrested, What do they usually like? The son of Sam over a parking ticket, a broken tail light, somebody runs a red light. So when they started focusing on these quality of life crimes, the little stuff, they started eliminating the bigger stuff, because now you're making these people held accountable for their actions and locking them up and putting them away.
And by cutting crime from the bottom up, the so-called broken windows, they wouldn't tolerate any sort of minor crime whatsoever. And they gradually cleaned up whole districts of New York. And as they cleaned up the minor crimes, the major crimes vanished too. There's a fantastic lesson for Britain in this. And what we're doing, what I'm doing here today, is actually finding out the details, how they did it, how they ran it, what were the control systems, who was responsible, who took the authority, how did they exercise it, where did they get those police from, how did they get them out in the street, issues which we have to deal with in Britain. And this is so that when we take power in a couple of years' time, on day one, we can set about doing in Britain what New York has already done here. "20 years ago, if you come jogging here, you'd be taking your life in your hands. You might get mugged, or assaulted, even murdered. Today, it's the safest place and the most popular place in New York to go jogging. I've been sitting here for 15 minutes for 3 police cars, and here's another one. And that's what makes this a safe place for people to come out and enjoy themselves. Most of the people in this hall either will have suffered crime themselves or will know somebody who has. This matters. We get this wrong, people get hurt. We get it right, it improves people's lives. And we can get it right. We can make a difference. What we've seen here in New York and in other American cities, Boston, LA, you name it, shows that good policing, proper policing on the streets, cuts crime, makes people's lives better. And that's what we're going to do.